Hi guys, welcome to the Grow Your Blog workshop. I'm so excited to be doing this workshop. Of course, let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. I'm just waiting for it to kick in so that you guys can tell me that I've set this up all right. Hi Doris, hi Jessica, hi Caitlin. I'm so glad you're all here. A lot of people who've signed up for this workshop can't make it live, so I just want to say hi to you guys who are watching this replay. But let me know in the comments if you can hear me. Yes, awesome. I'm so excited. So I have learned from last time, and I haven't made myself a cup of tea because last time I just ended up with a big cold cup of tea next to me, but I have some water. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I have some water. I have some notes as well to keep me on track. But this time I'm going to be teaching you all about how to grow your blog. And I just want to differentiate it from the next workshop, which is the Promote Your Blog workshop, which is going to be happening in 3 weeks' time. And in that workshop, I'm going to be teaching you how to use Instagram and Pinterest and social media to further grow your blog, to promote everything that you've been doing on your blog. But in this one, I'm just really going to be sharing how to actually grow your blog so that you have something to promote. Because without doing this work to grow your blog, even if you have the best Pinterest strategy, the best Instagram strategy out there, if you're sending people back to a blank blog, it's not really going to matter. So this is really important. I have got a few different things that I'm going to be covering off on. There are also extra tutorials that I have added and will be adding into the course. So there's already one on how to set up your custom email address for your domain using Gmail, which is super simple, and I've just given a complete step-by-step, and it's a really easy way you can make yourself look professional from the get-go. And I'm going to be adding in a whole email list tutorial as well, but I'm going to get into that as we go along. But thank you so much, guys, for being here. I love doing this. I've been really excited for the last 24 hours because, yeah, it's just so fun chatting to you guys. So if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. If you're on desktop, it should be on the right-hand side of the video, and if you are on mobile, it should be below. And if you're watching the replay, if you actually go onto the YouTube page, the comments will pop up as though they are live. Like, it's actually really cool. They'll come up when it actually matches up with what I'm saying. So you will get the whole live experience, even if you're watching the replay, by doing that as well. So I'm just going to quickly cover who is here, because there are a few different people who are at different stages, and also what I'm going to be talking about. And then I'm just going to dive straight in. Hi, Deb. So if you have any questions, just ask at any time. Don't worry at all about interrupting or anything like that. It's live so that you can ask questions. So don't be a lurker and just jump in whenever you want and say hello. And if you see a question that someone else has asked and you have some insights to share, or your opinion, or you've been through the same thing, or you just want to chat to them, feel free to do that as well. I've been loving the Smart 20s Bloggers Facebook group and seeing you guys all support each other. If you haven't joined yet, make sure you go over and do that. And feel free to post not just the wins and the progress updates, but also if there's anything you're struggling with. One of you guys this morning actually posted about feeling physically sick when people, like, with the knowledge that people are looking at your blog. And I actually experienced the same thing. I felt like physically ill. I wasn't physically ill, but I felt like just this overwhelming feeling, and then it just goes away eventually. But yeah, just stuff like that. It's so important to share the good and the stuff that's more challenging as well. So what I'm going to be covering in this workshop are, first of all, the most important things you need to do to grow your blog. So now that you've got started, these are the first things that I recommend doing. There's obviously so many articles and blog posts, and it's just, there's an overwhelming amount of advice about blogging. And I just want to give you something that's really simple. These are the things that I feel have made the biggest difference with my blog. And these are things that I started doing in 2016. Even though I started in 2013, I was in my own way for so many years that it wasn't until I started taking it more seriously in 2016. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is still pretty new and it's still current. It's still the stuff I'm doing to this day. Then I'm going to be talking about the biggest mistakes that new bloggers make. And I have made a lot of these myself, and they're really easy to make, but they're also easy to avoid. So I want to go through them as well. I also want to set expectations for the next 6 months. And no matter where you are in your journey, I just want to really set some expectations for the next 6 months so that you don't get disheartened. And I'm going to be then talking about fear, doubt, and perfectionism and how to manage all of that, since so many people leave out this really important mindset piece about blogging and just tell you all the strategies and tactics, when really the biggest thing that stops us is our brain telling us you should just quit, you should just, you don't need to do it today, you can just do it tomorrow, and all of that stuff. That's the hardest part about blogging. It's why it's such an amazing personal development tool. So I'm going to be covering that. I'm also going to be going over how to balance blogging with full-time work or full-time study, because I know a lot of you are short on time. And I had to find a way to manage growing my blog. So I'm just changing this, growing my blog and still maintaining my commitments to my job or to my studies. Though I will be honest and say that for a lot of my studies, I just was doing blogging instead, and then I just crammed. But once I got to getting a full-time job, I had no choice but to learn how to balance the two. So I'm going to be talking about that, and I'm going to be going over the best blogging habits to develop. And within that, there are a lot of subtopics. I have got notes so that I go over everything. And there are also, as I was saying, different people at different stages. So a lot of you guys have started your blog, done my Start Your Blog workshop, or you are about to get your blog up and going. You're in those initial stages. Some of you guys missed my Start Your Blog workshop but have jumped on now, so you haven't started yet, and that's completely fine. These are the things you're going to need to do once you get started, so it's still going to be completely valuable. And some of you have been blogging for a few years and you're just not feeling that you're getting the momentum or the traction that you want to, or maybe you've started to get some extra time in your day. A few of you have said now you'll be on summer holidays, which to me, because it's winter here, like I just keep forgetting that you guys are on summer holidays. But some of you have more time, though if you don't, not a problem at all, because as I will be talking about, more time often doesn't solve the problem that you hope it will unless you're really managing your mind. So I hope that sounds like it'll be helpful for you guys. And I'm just going to jump straight into the most important things to do. And as I said before, if you have any questions, please just jump in that chat box and ask them. So I've got a few important things to do. I will be adding notes after the workshop is over for all the dot points that I'm going to be going through so that you can remember everything. So if you're taking notes, that's great. But I'm also going to be, just so I let you know, so you don't have to worry about missing anything, I'm going to be adding the notes that I have to the course as well. Just going to have a little sip of water. So the very first thing to do once you have started, so this is once you've got your domain, and I recommend a self-hosted blog, which means that you have used someone like Bluehost, who I personally use, or another web host to actually have your own domain. So it'll be yourblogName.com instead of .wordpress.com. So you've got that, you've got your theme, you've got like the general layout. The next thing to do is to create an About Me page. And this is the most important page on your blog. I know it's one that I have neglected and forgotten to update and all of that kind of thing. But it is actually when you start your blog, when people find your blog, it's the very first page they're going to go to. And it's actually really helpful once you start a blog to notice your own behavior on someone else's blog, because it's very likely that people are treating your blog the same. And whenever I go onto a blog, if I find even just one post I like, I immediately go to the About Me page, because I want to know who is behind this blog. People want to follow people, and I know that in the beginning, when you don't have as much confidence in sharing your opinion and your ideas, we can believe that people just want to get information, that people just want to be told what to do. But people want to follow people. They want to be connected. They want to be part of something. People just want to feel heard. They want to feel loved. They want to feel like they're connected to other people. So having your About Me page is very important, and I recommend not neglecting this page. It doesn't need to be anything over the top, anything like outrageous, just a simple description of like who you are, a few little things about yourself. Even if you're not wanting to tell your friends and family yet about your blog, it is still very important that you are telling your new readers of your blog who you are, because they're going to want to know. It also helps the reader to get context for all of the stuff that they're reading about, and it makes it much more relatable. And it's just so nice to hear, like, to see that someone is actually behind the blog. Most of my views are on my About Me page. Yeah, most of my views are on my About Me page. I think it's my home page and then my About Me page. And I have neglected it at different points in time. And I'm sure it's due for an update at the moment, but at least spend 15 minutes just putting a very simple description of yourself. You can always go and update it later, but just make sure you have that page and you have somewhere in the navigation bar along the top, or however your blog thing's set up, somewhere that it's very easy to find, because people will be looking for it. So that's the first thing to do. It's really simple. A lot of you have probably already done that. But if you have, just think like, how could I improve my About Me page? Am I really happy with it? What would I think of it as someone landing on my blog? The next thing, number 2, is to put a photo on your About Me page. So a lot of people will create an About Me page and not put a photo on it. And it is extremely important. Words are not enough. People want to see that there's a person behind it, and seeing a photo is what really helps with that. Even if you don't want your friends and family to know about your blog just yet, you really need to put a photo, because people will be much less engaged if you don't. So what I did when I first started, and I still have it set up this way, is that I have it on my About Me page. There's a photo of me. And now obviously, like, I have an Instagram account and YouTube, and it's very easy for people to find out what I look like. But initially it wasn't. And it's funny because before I had my podcast and my YouTube channel, and I guess it was really before Snapchat, people would just email me being like, oh, I didn't even realize you were Australian, which now obviously when you hear me speak, you'd realize. But before, it was just words. And there's so much value in video, because you feel so much more connected. I am sure beyond a doubt that if I was just writing all of this down, it wouldn't be nearly as engaging and as relatable. So make sure you have an About Me page. I had one in the sidebar. So as soon as you got on my blog, you would see a photo of me. I think it said like, hi, I'm Sam. I'm a 27-year-old sharing what I learned as I make the most of my 20s. When I first started, I was 22. So I've like updated my age as I've gone, but it's actually been kept pretty similar to when it initially was. And then I have one on my About Me page. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you do it. Even if you can't find a great photo of you, something is definitely better than nothing. Yes, Brianna said, this is a great point. I've definitely been a little shy about putting my face and personality on my blog. Yes, and I'm talking about this because I know that people are hesitant to put a photo, and it's because we don't believe yet that people are there for us. and for our personality. And the truth of all of this is that you guys could be getting all of this information that I'm sharing with you in this workshop from other people. There are people with many more years experience blogging than me, people who dedicate like everything they do. They're not doing personal development teaching, they're just doing blogging teaching, but you're here for my personality, for me. And that is what you have to bring through on your blog. And I'm going to be talking more about how to find your voice and that kind of thing. But just know in the beginning that people are looking for information about you. They're looking for your photo just so they can like connect it in their head, like who's the person writing this. And it really helps as well if you have an Instagram account. Don't worry if you don't yet for your blog, but if you do, it is really important to post photos of you. Like I have quotes, but I'm also very cognizant of not just posting quotes because people want to see the personality behind it. So I post a mixture of photos of me, which feels really weird and vain a lot of times, but I know that when I'm following someone, I like to see photos of them. And yeah, you just have to like start thinking about what you like seeing on other people's. And often it's the really personal stuff that is the most engaging because there's so much information out there. And I don't think I have said anything new anywhere on my blog, podcast, anywhere. But it's the way that I am sharing it through my experiences in my own way that you guys connect with and you guys can relate to. And you will also be that for someone. So make sure if you haven't done it today, it'll only take 5 minutes. Go and find a photo of yourself. Mine was like a very dodgy selfie. And I had it for a few years. And I mean dodgy because back then the camera phones weren't great and it was super pixelated. But even if you just need to like take a quick selfie and put it up there, it is something that I do want to ask you to do as soon as possible if you haven't already done it. And it will really just start also like helping you get your personality out there on your blog. So that's number 2. The third thing is to set up a custom email domain with Gmail so that your blog, so that you come across as a more professional blogger. So when I first started Smart 20s, I created a Gmail address, smart20s@gmail.com. I used that for a few years. And the reason I didn't have like sam@smart-20s.com, which is what I have now, was because I didn't really know how to do it. And I knew that there was a way through your web host that they could do it, but it was just so foreign. And then I saw that there was a way to actually do it with Gmail, and I was already using Gmail, so it looks exactly the same. Like you don't have to learn a new email interface or anything. And it's super simple. I've already put up a step-by-step tutorial. Like I went through it the other day and like made sure everything is what it currently is, all the steps you need to do, because the post that I initially followed about it is now years out of date and completely, like I read it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. So I went through it again for you guys and set it up and then took screenshots and all of that kind of thing. But it makes a difference if you're wanting to make money from your blog, if you're wanting to be taken as a professional, taken seriously, then it really does indicate that you are more serious about your blog if you have actually got your own email address instead of @gmail.com. I know it can sound like such a small little thing, but it is worth taking a minute. It takes less than 15 minutes to set it up. And it does cost $5 a month to use G Suite and to have it all set up through that. But I think it's totally worth it. And also because you will see yourself differently. It feels different to have a proper email address than @gmail.com. And so much of this is about how you see yourself, because how you see yourself will inform the way that you show up. And if you're not investing in yourself, if you're trying to do like the cheapest version of everything and just like not wanting, like not investing in little things that can really help, you'll feel that, like you can feel that you're not committed. And whether it's investing in doing this or an email service provider for your email list, like, I'm not saying you have to spend heaps of money, but if you are not willing to invest in yourself because you are scared that it won't pay off, then all of that like builds up and you will not show up in a way that is going to then lead to success. So setting up a custom email domain with Gmail, super important, and it's a really easy thing to do. So go and check out the tutorial. If you haven't, in the Smart 20s Bloggers Facebook group, a lot of you have said that you've done the tutorial and you've set it all up and it was super easy. So yay, if that was you. If not, also put that on your list of things to do. It's also great to just have it from the beginning, because then you don't have to worry about redirecting. And for a while I was balancing like my 2 email addresses, and then eventually I had all my incoming mail to my new address. But it's something that's really inexpensive and can just help you stand out as a blogger. The next thing to do is to write your first blog post. I know a lot of you have done this already, but I know there are a lot of you who haven't, or who have and then maybe you've deleted it, or maybe you've been going back to edit it. So if you haven't done it yet, a couple of ideas for how to do your first blog post is why you started your blog, or what you can expect from your blog. I actually didn't do that when I started. I think I just wrote a post about money or something like that. So you don't have to do that. You can just jump straight in. But if you're really stuck for ideas, it can be just really easy to type up a little, here's why I started, or here's what I'm hoping to achieve kind of thing. And I really want to encourage you to allow this to be imperfect. And I think that when it's the first blog post, it can really be this like, the first one needs to be perfect because it's going to set the tone, and you know that's what people are going to see. There's only one thing to see, so it better be something good. The reality is that when you only have one blog post, and this is what I had to remind myself to get through at the beginning, people aren't really going to come back to a blog with one blog post. They might if they know you personally, but if you stumble upon a random person's blog and they just have one blog post, it's not really like people want to get lost in a blog. So it's more important to create content so that when people find your blog, they actually have different posts to read and all of that sort of thing. So with the perfectionist mindset, we can get really stuck in having like this one first perfect post, when instead no one actually cares. And the good thing about blogging is that it only gets better. And it's not like the first post is going to set the tone and like that's, you know, the limit of how good you'll ever be able to write. It goes steadily and it definitely goes up. Your blog posts improve with time. It's a skill. It improves with practice. So don't be worried. I know it's like easier said than done, but if you've been hesitating over your first blog post and you're wanting it to be absolutely perfect and you've been fretting over it and deleting it and editing it, just let it be what it is. And what I like to do if I'm struggling with this, or what I used to do, is that I would give myself a set amount of time and I would just post, or I would set myself a deadline like I did for the second month of blogging. I posted something every day just to stop myself from having the time to go back and edit the other posts. And that really helped me find my voice and create some momentum and actually feel like I was moving forward. Because when you write something, post it, edit it, delete it, I know that sounds weird, but a lot of you guys will be able to relate. It really stops that momentum ever gathering. And even if that first blog post you write is absolutely stunning, unless you write the second, third, fourth, and fifth blog post, no one's coming back. So I don't mean to like say that in a bad way, but people want to engage with something that's like something they can be a part of, and you can't really be a part of a blog that just has one post and that's that. So that is my advice. Jessica just said my first post is called Why I Didn't Start This Blog Until Today. I love that. So if you haven't done that yet, that is one of the first things you will need to do. And as I said, let it be completely imperfect. It's, yeah, like all of my posts, I still, when I publish them, I'm like, this could be so much better. But I have learned to just, like, I know that you guys see something different to what I see. Like when I look at it, and I've gotten a lot better at this, but when I look at a post, I see like, I couldn't like word that quite correctly, or there was a bit I wanted to add in, but like I see the things that didn't happen, whereas you guys look at my post and see the things that did and the good things about it. So just remember that people are seeing your post in that way too. So that's another thing for your list, to write your first post if you haven't already. The next thing to do is to create a content calendar. Caitlin just said, I learned this from you, don't just something for 3 months. Yes, very good. And I will be talking about that in a bit. So creating a content calendar. With this, I haven't been able to stick to a content calendar like I hadn't been able to until earlier this year, when I actually figured out how I needed to do it for me. So I had so many failed attempts at content calendars. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a calendar and you've penciled in the post you're going to post, like say what the title is and when you're going to post it. And it's just like your plan for your blog to help keep you on track. And it's helpful to have like, oh, this is what I need to write and all of that kind of thing. But I just struggled so much. There's all this advice to create a content calendar, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't figure out how to actually stick to it until I adapted a process from something else I was doing to the content calendar, and it works beautifully. So I know a lot of you guys have a similar mindset, so I'm going to suggest this to you as well. But the first thing to do when you're coming up with a content calendar is to decide how often you want to post, and making it something that's achievable, but at the same time won't give you time to procrastinate. So that might be, I mean, it depends. It might be once a week. It might be once every 2 weeks. It might be 5 times a week. It doesn't really matter. Like, getting confused and feeling overwhelmed about a posting schedule is really just an excuse not to post. There's like so many right answers. You just have to pick. And people say that it's part of the reason this is important, consistency is important, is because people know what to expect. Like if I put out a podcast episode every Monday, then every Monday you guys know that you can go to my podcast and there will be a podcast episode. And it is important from that point of view. But I think what's more important is having guidelines for yourself, because if you don't have a guideline about when you're going to post and you're dealing with perfectionism and fear and self-doubt, then you're probably going to put it off. And it's a slippery slope. You put it off for a week and then, oh, it doesn't matter if it's a few extra days. And then, oh, it doesn't matter if it's a few extra weeks. And then next thing you know, it's 3 months and you haven't posted. So I think having a content calendar is more important for your own benefit, for your own mindset, and for managing any perfectionism, because I found that when I had a content calendar, I've had different posting frequencies at different times. As I mentioned, when I first started, I was posting every day, and it was only a few sentences, but just so that I could build the momentum, and I didn't have the time to procrastinate and over edit and do all of those things that were sabotaging me, that I was doing to sabotage myself. So it doesn't matter what your schedule is. If you want to just type in the comments what you think you might be doing, if you want to post once a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, but make it something that is going to be achievable, but is also not going to leave room for procrastination. So I wouldn't say once a month, because what's probably going to happen is that you're going to procrastinate for 30 days and then write it on the 31st. So I would do at least once a week if your schedule will allow it. And if you can do more than that, then do more than that. But come up with how many times per week that you want to post. And then the next thing you do is separate idea generation from judgment. And this is, if you're struggling to come up with any kind of ideas, content ideas, blog name ideas, whatever it is, it's likely because you're judging or you're in the habit of judging your ideas as you're having them. And when you're in that habit, you actually, with like, ideas don't even come up because you're already creating, like, not allowing them to be there, if that makes sense. So I was finding that when I was trying to come up with content ideas, I was thinking and judging, like thinking I could write this, oh no, that wouldn't be good. I could write this, no, that wouldn't be good. And it's very challenging to come up with good ideas in an environment where judgment is immediately imposed on it. And it's really powerful to create space to have ideas without them being judged. So at the time when I was like, I need to figure out this content calendar stuff, like I want to be organized, but I haven't been able to do it in the past. What I did to separate out this idea generation and judgment was I looked at a process that I was doing as a contributor. So I write for a blog called Advice from a 20-something. I write 2 posts for them a month. And what I do is I pitch them. I usually try to pitch 6 ideas. And if they like them all, then we just do them all and calendar them out. But I pitch ideas. They come back to me and say which ideas are a good fit. I write the post and they post them. And that was working so well. I was like, wow, it's so easy to write for someone else's blog. Like, it's so much easier than writing for my own blog. So what I did was I created that for myself. So I pitched myself ideas, and I found the most helpful thing was to pitch myself double the ideas that I needed. So say I was doing this for 4 posts per week, I would come up with 8 post ideas. And when I did it that way, and this is without judging it, these are just different ideas that anyone that like I could do, but I didn't have to do. So by creating double the ideas, it like gave me room for a lot of those ideas to not be great. But I just know that I needed to get to 8 ideas. So I would write down like all my ideas, and what I did is I give it a tentative title, and then I would pitch like 100 words, which is what I do for Advice from a 20-something. So I write 100 words-ish, or just at least a few sentences about why this would be great for their audience, and outline what I'm going to cover. And the reason that a lot of content calendars hadn't worked in the past was because I just sit there and think of like blog post titles. And then when it came to writing the blog post, I'd be like, actually, like I hadn't nutted out the idea. I hadn't fully fleshed it out before I put it in my content calendar. And so when it came time to write it, I was like, oh, that's actually not a great idea. And it was really challenging to stick to it when you get to it and you're like, wait, I don't want to write this. So what I do, again, I pitch double the ideas. So say a lot of you have said that you're going to be writing once per week. So say you want to plan the month ahead and just have an idea of what you're going to write, come up with 8 ideas and just give it a tentative title, and then pitch it to yourself. Like, think of yourself as a writer and you're pitching it to your boss. Like, if you're working for someone else, you can imagine what it's like to have, like, you're doing idea generation and they're saying this isn't a good fit for the blog. And it's not saying you are or aren't good enough. It's saying this will work, this might not work. So you do that, come up with double the ideas, and then you take that hat off, you put your boss hat on, and you say, okay, this will be good, this will be good, this will be good, this will be good. And because you've generated double the ideas, you automatically have to reject 4 of them. Of course, if they're all amazing, you can just schedule them in the coming months. But if you only come up with 4 ideas, I don't know if you guys can relate, but I just find it so challenging when I'm in the mindset of all my ideas have to be great. But when I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to be using half of these, I'm just going to come up with 8 ideas and then I'll assess them. It's so much easier. So this is the process that has really helped me actually create a content calendar. I don't use anything fancy. There's all kinds of plugins for WordPress and that kind of thing that you can use. But I have just used Google Docs. I love Google Docs. Um, I just like use a table to make a calendar and then just typed in the title. And so what I do is I might actually try and add one of these to the course as well. I'd have a little calendar at the top. Then I would have like all my pictures, and then I had a section for the approved ones. So I'd come up with all my ideas, and then above that, I'd write like approved by my boss. And I would copy and paste from the pitch section all the ones that were approved, so that next time I wanted to pitch myself, I could also consider some of the ideas I already had, or I could flesh them out further or develop upon them. And yeah, that's really the system that has helped me the most. I haven't heard anyone talking about it that way either, which is why I really wanted to share it, because a lot of the advice I'd followed before was like essentially doing it without fleshing out the idea. So you just think of like, oh, I'll do top 10 personal development tips. And then you sit down to write and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to, and it just helps to have thought about it earlier and have that as part of the vetting process. So I'm just going to read some comments. I think my block is I'm too concerned with the niche idea. I'm concerned with the ideas being too specific or too broad. Hannah, you're definitely not alone. I know a lot of people are struggling with that, but it is something that I wouldn't recommend focusing on. Like when I started my blog, so my vague idea that I had was it was going to be about how to make the most of your 20s. So vague. Does that mean health? Does that mean personal development? Does that, like, what does that mean? Does that mean career? Does that mean travel? Does that mean money? Who knows? It's so vague. And so I just started to write about different things I was interested in. And eventually that kind of all ended up being personal development stuff. And then as I was going through the process of having my blog, the perfectionism thing just really became unavoidable. So then I started writing a lot of content relating to that perfectionist mindset. And recently I haven't been writing about perfectionism as much because I don't want to be like, I don't want to see myself as that. Like, as I was saying, self-image is so important and you live into the labels that you give yourself. And I don't want to keep giving myself that label. But it definitely underpins a lot of what I write. So it took me a couple of years at least to figure out what I wanted to write about. So I think if you're worried about it being too specific or too broad, then it will actually limit the ideas that you have if you're imposing this judgment on it. And I'm going to be talking about this in a second, my advice for how to write content, and it will be helpful for that as well. So just know that that's a concern a lot of people have, but I recommend instead of focusing on the niche thing, and I know so many people are like, you have to have a niche, you have to have a niche. I agree. You can't try to please everyone. But I also think that it does take time to develop a niche. And with the whole blogging thing, if you don't actually like what you're writing about, even if you have the best niche in the world, if you don't enjoy it, it's going to be really hard to get through that initial period when no one's reading. And I'm going to talk about that in the section that is going to be about setting expectations. But yeah, it's something that a lot of people struggle with. But I think getting confused about that as well is often just the way we self-sabotage, and we just say to ourselves, you know, I can't write anything until I have the perfect niche, when really we're just scared of writing and people not liking it. Or like initially I was scared that like everyone would read it and hate it, or that no one would read it. Like it was this kind of like, I was scared people would read it and I was scared they wouldn't read it. So that's my advice on that. Do you schedule Instagram posts? I do. I use an app called Planoly, Planoly, to plan my Instagram posts. And I'll be talking more about that in the Promote Your Blog workshop. How did blogging every day influence your posting schedule? I literally like just spent like a few minutes typing each day, and like no one was reading. So it didn't really matter. It was just for me that I just needed to have some kind of feeling of momentum. So I would literally, I didn't have a content calendar or anything then. I literally like, I would often just post links to things and a few words about it. So yeah, I just like posted every day. And then after a month, I was like, okay, now I'm just going to go back to, I think I posted maybe a couple times a week. Can't exactly remember. But it definitely helps because then when people came to my blog, there's actually something there to engage with. So it is really important. It's so much better to have 30 average posts than one stunner, one amazing post. Like, I think that it is like, quality is important. People talk about the importance of content quality and not just having a lot of shit. But when you're first starting, it takes time to find your voice. Like, when I started, I was just mimicking other people that I liked following, and it took me a while to figure out how to write so that I sound literally like myself now when I write. So I think it's such a great learning experience to post a lot. And you can always delete it. I've hidden a lot of those posts now because they just don't fit in with what I'm writing about. So don't look at people's blogs and think that everything that's there is all they've ever written, because most of the time it's not. And you can go to the Wayback Machine. If you type that into Google, you can put in a URL and you can see people's posts and you can see the ugly themes and you can see all of that. And it is really important to remember that everyone has this really awkward, messy stage. Like, I'm still in that stage. Like, I think we want to think that, I'll just come up with like once per week, the perfect niche, and then it will just continue that way. But I've changed my like niche so many different times. I've changed my content calendar so many different times. At the end of the day, all that matters is that you keep showing up. And if fussing over your content calendar or getting confused about the posting schedule and all of that is stopping you from taking action, then just throw it away and just write whenever you can. It is just great to have your own deadlines and structure so that you don't end up on that slippery slope where, you tell yourself you post tomorrow and then the next day and then it's the next week and then it's the next month and then you still haven't posted, and then it's even harder to get that momentum back because it feels amplified. Like, I know that when I would have these big periods of times where I didn't post, which is what I want to mention as well, when I was really in my own way, there'd be months where I didn't post. Then I felt like, well, no, I haven't posted in a while. This next post better be good. And I just put so much pressure on myself, and that made it even harder. So I've personally found that a higher volume of posts, I feel less pressure. And the other thing too is that I think, like, in the beginning, I used to think this would be so much easier when people are reading because I won't feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. But I found that it hasn't gotten any easier. And knowing that there are other people on the other end who you don't want to disappoint, who you want to really help, that doesn't necessarily make it easier. So don't fall in the trap of thinking it'll be easier when you have readers. Just, it's all about managing your mind and being disciplined. A lot of people want a blog because they want to work for themselves. It's so much harder than working for someone else. In my opinion, you need so much more discipline. You need to be able to create your own deadlines and stick to it. And a content calendar is a really great way to start developing that skill. Also, if you can't think of ideas for your content calendar, do not let yourself off the hook. Coming up with ideas is something that is a skill, and it's going to take your brain a while to warm up to if you haven't been in the habit of forcing it to come up with ideas. So if you're like, okay, I need to come up with 8 ideas, and you're just sitting there staring at a blank piece of paper, what you can do is try and come at it from different ways. So you can say, like, okay, well, what would Sam write about? What might be 8, or whoever's in a similar niche to you, you can say, oh, what are 8 things she might write about? Then from that lens, you might find you'd write all these things, you're like, actually, I could write that. And as I was saying, all the information is basically already out there, and people are there for your personality. So it doesn't matter. Like, you could go on my blog and look at any post I've written and put your own spin on whatever that idea is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Of course, it's important not to just copy and paste, or not to copy and paste and then tweak a few words. That's not going to help you. And people will know, like, I like to think that, yeah, if you're copying someone, you're always going to be behind them because you're relying on them to create new things. But I think of it like vice versa, as in, if people are copying me, then they're always going to be behind me because they always have to wait to see what I'll do and then adapt to that. And if you're the creator, then you are, like, if you're copying someone else, you're never going to be able to make your own mark. And it's okay in the beginning to be really inspired by other people, but just be with it and be respectful. But if I'm stuck for ideas, I go onto other people's blogs and I'm like, hey, and yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that's something else you can do. How do you break down from idea to published? Do you write multiple drafts and post however it is on your deadline? So what I do is I write it all in Google Drive, like in a Google Doc. I've just found that you'll figure this out as you go. You'll have a place to write that's easiest. Like at some points in time, I used to write by hand because that was easier, and then I'd translate it. But what I do is I write it in a Google Doc, and then I still takes a lot to stop me from editing as I go, but that takes so much more time. So what I do my best to do is I give myself a set amount of time to write a first draft, and I literally just like write the idea like without editing it, and then I'll go back in and edit it. And I do still struggle with over editing, and I can tell you if I didn't have deadlines, nothing would get done. Most of the things I post, almost everything, there's still stuff I want to do to it, but I'm just like, there's a deadline, I need to get this up. So I think it's very important to have deadlines, because often, like, it's very hard to get things to a point where you're like, this is a masterpiece. So I find it extremely helpful to have those deadlines, and I do just post however it is on the deadline. And if you can be disciplined with yourself about deadlines, it will create a sense of urgency. But if you're not disciplined with your deadlines, there won't be urgency, and it'll just be very easy to put it off perpetually, and then you just lose momentum. So it is a skill that you do need to develop if you want to have blogging as a full-time thing, because there's no one telling you when to post. There's no one there who's going to say you didn't post today, and you need to be that for yourself. So that would be my advice on that. So even if I don't perfectly know my niche, I should write about what I want to share, then my niche will find me. Yes, very well said. That's exactly what I think about niches. Don't niches. Oh, you know how everyone says it different. I wouldn't stress about finding a niche. Just write about what you want to share, and eventually you will end up, so say like it's wellness, like, or health, or something that's like a big topic. There's a lot of subtopics within health. Then when you start writing, you'll eventually notice that all of your stuff is probably going to relate to one particular area of health. Or what happened is you'll start getting questions about one particular area, and you'll go down that way. Like, I started writing very vaguely, like personal development. There's so much within personal development, but as I was saying, it wasn't even like personal development. It was like how to make the most of your 20s, which there's so many different things you could talk about within that. Then I talked about personal development, and then I started to notice, hey, like, I'm really struggling with this all or nothing thing. And I started to write about all of that stuff because that was what was really interesting to me. And yeah, I think that that's the best way to do it, especially like this is a long game. This is a marathon. And if you are if you're thinking that having a perfect niche is going to help make this into a sprint, it's not. So either way, it's going to be a marathon. It just, yeah. The one pick the wizard. The one picks the wizard. The niche picks the blogger. Yes, that's so funny. So yeah, that's my advice for a content calendar. Again, I will write this all out so that you've got the process there, and I'll give an example as well. So I'll upload that this coming week, but that is something to definitely consider. But again, if you're getting confused about it, if you're getting overwhelmed about it, just pick something. Someone also mentioned it's out of view now. One of you guys said, how long should posts be? I can't find the comment now. But how long should a post be? As long as you want it to be. Like, I find that, like, I love long form content. There's so much advice, always. No one wants to read long blog posts, but you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't like it as well, because I record long podcast episodes. I write long Instagram captions. Like, everything I do is fully fleshed out, because I hate going to a blog and I'm so excited and then it's 200 words. I'm like I can't engage with that. And the kind of learner that I am, I really want all the details, all the ins and outs. And I happily will read. I'd rather read one amazing long blog post than 10 short ones that are all like fluffy. And that's just my personal opinion. But I don't think there's any perfect length. And again, that's something you'll just figure out over time. Like, I didn't initially start writing really long blog posts. I initially started writing like a few hundred words. And then as I gained confidence and I began to develop my ideas and be more willing to show up and to put myself out there, the blog posts just got longer. And I don't, like, if there's something I want to say that I could say in 500 words or 1,000, I say it in as few words as I can. Like, I don't want to waffle on. But if it's going to be something that's detailed, I'm not afraid of writing a long blog post. But I would just think about what you enjoy as a consumer. Like, a lot of my blog is just, it's the blog for me. Sorry, I just need to move. Oh. Sorry. It's like the ideal blog for me. Long blog posts, in-depth content about personal development. And you might not like that. I mean, you're here, so you probably like that stuff as well. But I just noticed, like, who are the blogs that you love following? And then just trying to figure out, like, what is it about it that you love? I would say definitely, and this is the same as like having a photo on your About Me page. People want you. Like, so you have the option to share an idea and have it be, say, 300 to 500 words, or to share a personal story mixed with that idea and have it, say, be 1,000 words. But that's so much more engaging, because, as I was saying, people aren't there for information. They can already get it somewhere else, and they want it from you. They want to hear your opinion on things. Like, I've found that sometimes I like try not to have such a strong opinion about certain things, but then, like, well, if you don't have an opinion about something, what's the point? Like, people are there for your opinion, or they would be somewhere else. So yeah, I hope that's making sense. But I think it's really the goal, and I'll be talking about this in a minute actually. The goal is just to put in the effort in the beginning. But I'm going to move on because it's already been an hour and I'm still on my first point. The next thing to do when you start your blog, so let me just quickly recap. So far, create an About Me page, put a photo on your About Me page, set up a custom email domain, email address for your domain with Gmail, write your first blog post, and then create a content calendar. So that's where we're at. Still got a lot to cover. I knew this was going to happen. The next is to create graphics for Pinterest. And this is something I'm going to be talking about in the Promote Your Blog workshop, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But I just wanted to quickly mention I use canva.com, canva.com, to create mine. If you were in the Start Your Blog workshop, I did include with that all the places that you can get free photography and paid photography if you don't have your own photos to use. And that's just something to keep in mind that you can also embed, because Pinterest is huge, huge. It's like where all my traffic comes from, basically, for blogging. and it's what I did to grow my blog, and it's still very effective. Everyone's still talking about how to use Facebook and Instagram, and people just aren't talking about how to use Pinterest. And there are a lot of bloggers on Pinterest, but there are a lot who aren't. And anyway, I'm going to go into the whole Pinterest thing and the Promote Your Blog workshop, but it's just something to think about, creating graphics for Pinterest. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and have a look on my Pinterest account, Smart 20s. I have a board called Smart 20s. It's the first board, and you'll see what I mean. I've created graphics where it has a photo and then the title of the blog post. Often people don't create something with the title of their blog post on it, which is fine, especially if you have a fashion blog. But if you have written something and it's often not clear just from, say, even if you have a photo of an outfit, it's not clear that that post, you might be talking about like 5 ways to style blazers. So you can create a graphic where it says that, and then people are much more likely to click on it. Otherwise, they might just save that, but they're never going to click over to your blog. So I'm not going to go into that now, but it's just something to start thinking about, because then as well, when people like something, they can pin it from your blog to their Pinterest account. And then the beauty of Pinterest is that people are sharing, like by saving it to their board. It's very different to Instagram, where everyone's like scroll, 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 scroll. No one's really reposting things. You might tag people obviously in the comments, but it's very different. Like even if someone tags you in the comments of something that they want you to see, it's unless you go and save that post, which is in your own secret area, no one else can see what you're saving, unlike Pinterest, then it's very hard to go back. But on Pinterest, everything that you can have is a link, unlike Instagram where you get one. And people are there to have an experience. They're there to slowly scroll. They're there to collect images, to collect blog posts, to collect ideas. Yeah, so I'm not going to say too much more about that because I'm going to run out of time. But that's going to be in the Promote Your Blog workshop, which will be available, like registration will be available in about a week, and the workshop will be in 3 weeks, and that will be the 3rd and final workshop in this series. So there's Start Your Blog, Grow Your Blog, and Promote Your Blog. So good. So the next thing to do, and this is the last important thing to do when you start your blog, is to start your email list. It's so important. Like an email list, a lot of us don't realize the importance of having an email list. But when you have a blog, so the beauty of having a blog is that you own your blog. You can back it up, you can have the file, and it doesn't, I mean, Google changed the algorithms and everyone's changing algorithms all the time, but it's your little place of the internet that you have control over. Your email list is your way to contact the people who are interested in what you're interested in. I mean, is that right? Yeah. To contact the people, to contact your readers. So a lot of people like focus on page views, but page views don't really mean much, especially if you're wanting to make money from your blog, if you don't have a direct way to contact all of those people that are looking at your blog. So I'm going to put up a tutorial on how to grow your email list, because we don't have time to go into the nuts and bolts of it, and you're watching this and you're not going to be setting it up right now as well. And I wanted to create a tutorial where you could just sit down with a cup of coffee or tea or whatever and just work through it. So email list is super important, even if you have 0 page views, which I'll be talking about soon, then it's still very important that you start setting up your email list. Oh, I'm glad you guys are excited about this. So I would focus on growing your email list over page views, but I'm going to talk about it in a bit as well, focusing on effort rather than hitting a certain amount of numbers. But there will be a tutorial that's going up this week. So a lot of you guys might be thinking, like, who should I set up an email list with? So I'll just briefly tell you what I'm doing. So when I started my blog, I was using MailChimp, and they have an option, and I just checked this morning to make sure it's still there. When you have 0 to 2,000 email subscribers, and there was a point I couldn't even imagine a day when I'd have 2,000 email subscribers, it's free. And then I started with that. And then I heard about ConvertKit, which wasn't around when I started blogging in 2013, but it was a new service that was available and just seemed to be a lot more intuitive, and just a lot of issues with MailChimp. Like MailChimp's more expensive once you hit that number than it is to be on something like ConvertKit. And I was wanting to grow, and I was like, well, if I'm going to eventually change over, I'll just change over now. So I did that in April 2016. And there's lots of things you can do in ConvertKit that you can't do in the free MailChimp version. And if you, as I understand it, or at least when I changed, this was the case. So you pay per number of email subscribers. And I have so many different lists, like all of you guys in this workshop. I have like a little sub email list. It's like Grow Your Blog Workshop students. And when I was emailing you the reminders about this workshop, you were getting it because you're on that list. But when you're on MailChimp, say you might be on my Grow Your Blog Workshop student list, my Start Your Blog Workshop student list, or this one, I'd have to pay for you, say maybe 6 times, like you're 6 different people. Whereas on ConvertKit, there's just really great ways of tagging people. The automated emails are great. I love using it. And I am an affiliate for it. So if you do go through my link, I will be paid a commission, but I only recommend it. The things I recommend, you guys know I don't bombard you with ads or anything like that. I've had to make a big decision not to do sponsored content. I don't do sponsored content. And I just want all of my recommendations to never be seen to have an agenda. But I do use affiliate links. So Bluehost, I'm an affiliate for. ConvertKit, things that I love using and that I recommend. And yeah, so ConvertKit, I'm going to be setting up a tutorial for that. But you can use MailChimp if you're not prepared to invest in yourself. But I switched over to ConvertKit, and just in case you don't know the pricing, so I don't know what the cost is of MailChimp once you hit 2,000, but ConvertKit is $29 a month US up to 1,000 subscribers, and then it's kind of like scaled up based on the number of subscribers that you have, which is because the more subscribers you have, the more money you're making. If you're using that list properly, it is an asset. Like, even though you'd never sell it to anyone, it is a really valuable asset. And you can also back up your email list, like you can export the document. So if your website goes down or gets hacked, or you lose your Instagram account, you will have a way to contact the people that are most interested in you. So it's so important. So I'm going to be setting up the tutorial about ConvertKit, but you can also use MailChimp. So I moved over to ConvertKit, I think when I had 200 subscribers, which had taken me 3 years to accumulate. And I just decided to do it because I was just like, I'm going to get serious about this blogging thing, and I'm going to be over 2,000 sometime soon. Even though my brain was like, it's taken me 3 years to get 200. Like, it's going to take me how many years to get the rest of the 2,000. But I can definitely say that because I was paying for my email list, I put in so much more effort to grow it because I didn't want to waste that money. And it's the same with like buying a proper domain. Even though I have nothing against cheap solutions, but if you're not investing anything in yourself, and if you believe in yourself, that's fine. But if you're not investing in yourself because you're scared that it won't pay off, then I don't think that not investing actually helps, because it just kind of perpetuates that. Because if you're not invested in it and you're not truly committed, then you're not going to put in the effort, and there's further evidence that it's not going to be worth it. So I'm going to have that tutorial, and in that I'm also going to be talking about how to get email subscribers, like how to set it up, how to offer something to your email subscribers. I'm also going to be mentioning the no, I can't think of what it's called. The European Privacy Law, GDPR. I'm going to be talking about them too, because it has slightly changed the way that you are required to display your email list to people, like to display your offers. But don't worry about it. I know a few of you guys have been asking me about the implications of GDPR, but and like people are scared because they've said there's a 20 million euro fine. They have also said you get 2 warnings. I also don't think that they're coming after the little guys, though this isn't legal advice, but I wouldn't get too concerned about it. But in that, I will be saying as well, things that you can do to, in my opinion, that you can do to meet that criteria. And even if you're in Australia like me, or you're in the US, or you're in the UK is in the EU for the moment. So yeah, no matter where you are, you will likely end up with subscribers who are in the European Union. And in my opinion, these laws will eventually be adopted in other countries, so it's just best to be compliant with it all round. But I will be talking about that further in the tutorial, so I hope you guys find that helpful. One more thing I want to say about email lists, it can be so easy, like with people talking about the number of subscribers they have, to forget that every single one of those numbers is a real person, and a real person that's chosen to give you their email address, which is something that people don't give over that willingly. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. And like, I'm very hesitant to give out my email address. And yeah, so if someone's giving you their email address, I like to always think of the people, especially in the beginning, instead of thinking like, oh, I only have 20 subscribers, which at the time I was like, oh, 20 subscribers. But instead of thinking I only have 20 subscribers, picturing 20 people in a room, that's a full room. Like, always constantly picturing it as people. And like with Instagram, the same thing as well. Like, there's so much around like needing more followers. And we can just forget that they are all people. I mean, on Instagram, some of them are probably bots and not real people. But regardless, there are real people amongst those numbers. And it is very important to keep remembering that, because if you're not grateful for what you have, you will not be grateful for what you get. We think like, oh, well, when I get more subscribers, then I'll appreciate them. No, it doesn't work that way. Unless you can appreciate what you have now, you get more subscribers, and then you're still in your mind, well, I'll appreciate it when I get more. And it's why people with millions of followers, with millions of dollars, can be so dissatisfied, because they're coming from this place of lack. And if you're not grateful for what you have, you won't be grateful for what you get. And if you're scared of not having enough, when you get it, you'll just be scared of losing it. It's like with money, people think that when they get more money, then their lack mentality will go away. I just need to have more money, and then I'll feel like, I can relax and all of that. Usually people who are in that mentality, they get more money, they either spend it so that they're brought back down to their normal comfort level, or they're scared of losing the money. Like, fear of not having becomes fear of losing. And I've seen people do this as well with like Instagram. If you have this lack around the numbers, then you initially be scared of, you don't have enough. Then when you get people, you might become scared of posting because people unfollow. Or with your email list, the same thing. Like, people become scared of emailing because every time they email, they get unsubscribers. And I shared this in the last workshop I did, but I get like 60 every time, at least 60 unsubscribes. I had to delete quite a few people on my email list because of the GDPR stuff. I had to delete people in the European Union that hadn't gone through a proper consent thing. So I have about 13,000 people on my list at the moment, and I get 60 unsubscribes every time. And every time I post on Instagram, people unfollow me. Like, it's just part of it. But if you're in this lack mentality around it, then you go from scared of not having enough to scared of losing it. So it is so, so, so important to appreciate the people you have, to reply to them, to comment, like, to really engage with them and respect that they are real people who are giving you their time, their energy. When people email me, like, I make such an effort to reply to every email that I get. Sometimes it takes me a while, but if I'm expecting you to read my emails, then I want to give that same thing back. And I think that it's easy to feel like too cool and like I don't have the time to reply to people's emails. But even just a quick, like I always say, like, thank you so much, I appreciate you. And I realized recently that I'm constantly saying to people in email, like, I appreciate you, I'm so grateful for you. I'm hearing that in my head and I feel so grateful because I'm constantly saying, I am so grateful, I'm so grateful. And I don't have a fear of losing subscribers and of losing Instagram followers because I know that if someone unfollows me or unsubscribes, it doesn't mean anything about me. There are a lot of people actually that I unfollow and unsubscribe that are beautiful, lovely, amazing people, and I don't want their emails. Like, doesn't mean anything about them, but I'm not trying to please everyone. I'm not trying to appeal to everyone. And yeah, it's just part of it. So should I switch my Instagram account to a business account? I'm going to be talking about this in the Promote Your Blog workshop. But I have a business account just because you can do the promotion stuff. You get analytics that you don't get in the personal one as well. And you can also have like an email button and different things. So initially when that came out, people were saying that they were having their numbers affected by it being a business account because then Instagram's like, oh, wait, you should be paying for ads. So I'm not going to show you I'm not going to show anyone your content so that you pay. And a lot of people had a big drop in their engagement. But I think people are now experiencing that anyway in their personal accounts. And those people who initially said they didn't want to change to business have all changed. So I personally do it, but I'll be talking about that more in the Promote Your Blog workshop. So that's what I'm going to say about email lists. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box, but I'm going to move on. Oh, I'm on to point 2. Oh, just chatting away. So the biggest mistakes that new bloggers make is what I'm going to be talking about now. So the first mistake is obsessing over analytics. I used to do this all the time. I would just, on the WordPress analytics, I would just be sitting there refreshing and all the page views would literally just be me. But I would still do it. And I was just really hooked on like, am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? Am I good enough yet? Like I was just looking for that validation. It's very important in the beginning, especially, but I would say at any point, to focus on effort. And I'm going to go more into this in the perfectionism section, but focusing on effort is an amazing way to deal with perfectionism because the perfectionist mindset, which is also a fixed mindset, is that all of our abilities were fixed at birth, like intelligence and talent, and then everything we do is evidence of whether or not we do have that natural ability, which is why a lot of perfectionists withhold effort. We believe that things should feel natural. Like a lot of people when they're trying to wake up early, they're like, I just want to wake up early naturally. Like we have this real obsession with things wanting to be natural. And the reality is that the only things that feel natural are things that you're already doing because your brain's efficient at doing it. So it feels natural. So anything new is not going to feel natural. But when you have that fixed mindset, you have this story around if it's not comfortable, it's like showing me that I have a lack of natural ability, that I'm not good enough. Whereas if you're in a growth mindset, which is focused on effort and which doesn't draw any conclusions from getting like failing or getting a poor result because it's all seen as skill, then it just seriously helps to focus on effort, reward yourself for effort. In my good things, like Steve and I say 3 good things each night, which a lot of you guys know, and I always like do my best to say I'm proud of myself for not, and I do my best to not make it a result. It's the effort. I'm proud of myself for the effort I put into my blog post, for doing that podcast episode, and I don't make it things like I'm proud of getting a certain number of subscribers or followers, because focusing on that, it's like if you were a crammer in school, a lot of us like withhold effort so that when we get a poor result, we can say, oh, but if I tried my hardest, I would have done better. And it can be very vulnerable. I still struggle with it. It feels very vulnerable to put in 100% effort. And I constantly find myself wanting to withhold effort, because effort is an indicator that, like with the fixed mindset, effort's an indicator that you don't have natural ability. So I do my very best to put myself in a growth mindset. Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck is amazing. It's the book that talks about it. It's her concept. And have a look at her on Google. I'll probably link some in the course, some videos you can watch if you don't know about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. It is very important. And just because you're interested in personal growth doesn't mean you're in the growth mindset. Yeah, I was like, growth mindset, that must be me. No. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I think new bloggers make, and a few of you guys have mentioned, is that at the beginning you're like, oh, no one's reading, no one's reading, no one's reading. Yeah, you just started. No one is reading. That's like, and I'm going to talk about it in a second in the bit about expectations, but no one is reading. So you need to focus on your effort. And even if people do start reading, it's very important that you still have your own way of validating yourself, because even if you do start getting numbers, it's this vicious thing of like, well, now I have a certain number of people, and then it will inevitably be like this. And to have your self-worth attached to something that has nothing to do with your self-worth is not helpful in any way, shape, or form. And it's very easy to do. So I'm going to be talking in a bit about how to set goals that are effort-based rather than result-based. The second biggest mistake, actually these aren't in order, but biggest mistake number 2 is spending time formatting or working out inconsequential technical issues rather than posting. This is something I used to do all day, every day, and it felt like I was really putting in a big effort towards my blog. I was struggling, and I felt like because I was busy, I was being productive. I was always working on my blog. And once people knew about my blog, they're like, oh, you spend so much time on it. I'm like, yeah, like I'm really putting the effort. And then I just like at different points in time, and I find new ways to do this. It keeps coming back, and I keep having to catch myself. But it's very easy to fill, if you haven't got the mindset down yet, to fill your time with tasks that don't actually matter, so that you don't have time to do the scary ones. So if you're scared of people judging you, if you're scared of no one reading your blog post, if you're scared of everyone reading your blog post, or both of those, then it's likely that you're going to procrastinate on it. But what a lot of us perfectionists do is we don't like doing nothing. So we'll get really busy with stuff that doesn't matter. And that'll be like thinking about the niche and how many times to post and how long to write, and like researching that when we just need to make a decision and feel the vulnerable feeling that comes with actually deciding what you're going to do. And also just, I used to spend so much time formatting and fiddling with my Pinterest graphics, making sure they were perfect when like they never got to be perfect. So I would just spend hours and hours and hours, and then I wouldn't have enough time to post a new post, which I'd be like, oh, I didn't have enough time. But subconsciously, I was like filling my time so that I didn't have enough time. But consciously, I really wanted to post. I was like, oh, damn it, I filled up all my time again with this Pinterest graphic stuff. So if that's you, then you just need to flip it. So this is why having a content calendar and deadlines is very helpful. You stick to that calendar deadline that you have set yourself. And then if you have extra times, you can fiddle with graphics. You can figure out that little tech issue that has this little thing a bit out of alignment. So it just needs to be the other way around. So you do the hard work, the challenging stuff that makes you feel vulnerable, and then in the spare time you do the formatting. And you will find as well, if you do it that way, formatting is so much quicker because you're not procrastinating while you're doing it. So that is one of the biggest mistakes that I made and continue to make. It's just something that keeps coming up for me and I keep finding new creative ways to fill my time with things that are comfortable for me. Luckily though, as you grow, the things that used to scare you are now comfortable. So for me, posting a blog post is now the comfortable thing, and doing the things to grow my business, to pitch myself for podcast interviews, all of that stuff, the stuff that's like freaking me out. Not on an intellectual level, but like subconsciously, because I can look at my actions and see that I haven't been doing that. So I wanted to mention that because I know a lot of you guys are doing it. I do want to also mention the biggest way that a lot of people have this is wanting to change their blog theme. Sure, a lot of you guys have already experienced this. Once you start a blog, the battle begins on how not to constantly change your blog theme. Like, it's one of those things that now, like, even for my blog theme at the moment, I'm like, ugh, like, there's so many things I don't like about it, but changing it isn't going to have, like, the time spent doing that, which I will at some point, and doing it over and over again isn't actually getting my business anywhere. It's just comfortable. And it's really easy to think like, oh, but people, like, more people will stay on my blog if they like my theme. When in reality, that's not what they're there for. They're there for me. They're there for more content. And if changing my theme all the time stops me from producing content, then they're not going to come back. So I just want to mention that as well. Expect yourself to want to change your blog theme every week, and don't let yourself do it. If you are struggling with this, then I recommend setting like maybe 3 months, 6 months, like, okay, if I still don't like it, I mean, I can change it on, say now you'd be like, I can change it at Christmas time. Like, giving yourself time that you'll change it. So you can be like, you know, if you want to think about it, that's fine. But just don't let yourself do it. Like, it's really important. The next biggest mistake is getting disheartened when no one's reading. Guys, I know it's so tough to just be talking to no one. Literally, it's just you reading it. But blogging is not a quick path to success. There will be months when you have very few readers. And the thing is, like, some people do maybe like in the initial days get a burst of readers if one of their posts happens to like get some attention. But then that, if that does happen, more than likely that just dies down when the post dies down. And then you're back to, if often those people feel even more disheartened because they thought like, wow, this is really off to a great start. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no one's reading. And it's, so I wouldn't be praying for that. It's really important that you do have a strong reason to blog. For me, I always think this reason is that you enjoy doing it. And if you're doing this for money, it's easy to just get a job. Like, you have to really get through it. It's why I was looking up like what percentage of blogs get abandoned, and it was like 95% get abandoned and only have a few posts on them. And it's because it's so challenging, but it means that if you just keep going, you're automatically in the top 5%. And it's just such a great lesson in personal development to be able to keep going when you're not getting results. And if you can do this in blogging, you'll be able to do it in fitness, in healthy eating. Like, this need for instant gratification and instant results is something that I think the media and advertisers have been selling us. And a lot of us are now in this mindset of we need really quick results or it's going to be a waste of effort. Also, perfectionists have this thing with wasting effort. I've done a whole podcast about it actually, but the fear of wasting effort is, when you think about it intellectually, this like ridiculous thing, because it's not something that, like, you know, you store all your effort up and then you get to use it in the future. You have a certain amount of effort you can exert every day, and you either do or you don't. It's not like like with time, it's not like, you know, unless you have something else you're going to do with it, it's not like you can save up all your time and use it at some point in the future. So wasting effort, I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, I'm worried I won't have enough time, and you don't want to waste the effort of setting it up in case it doesn't work out. I think it's very important to see this as such a great learning opportunity. If you're interested in personal growth, which you guys are because that's why you follow me, then just instead of seeing this as like, I need to be successful really quickly, often we're in a rush to success because we need validation. It's because we need someone to give us a pat on the back and say, good job, you know, you're actually worth something. And the thing though is when you're dependent on others for validation, you can never get enough. And it's something that I've really had to learn. And now I validate myself in a lot of ways. I still find myself seeking it from other people, but I have gotten so much better at it, at just validating myself and asking myself, well, do I like this blog post? If yes, then that's enough. Do I like this Instagram post or this quote? If yes, then that's enough. It doesn't matter to me as much that, like, it's not going to be for everyone. And if it pleases me, then that's all that matters. And it can be really hard to get into that mindset. It's taken me a long time. But learning to enjoy the day-to-day process is what will get you through, coupled with the belief that as long as you don't quit, you will be successful. I've spoke about it in the Start Your Blog workshop. That is the belief that really pulled me through. From the podcast I listened to, I just really had this belief. If I don't quit, I will be successful. If I don't quit, I will be successful. And when I was really struggling with self-doubt, I would not post for a few months, but I never quit. I never gave up on it. In my mind, I was always still blogging, even if I had a few months break from it, which wasn't comfortable. I feel like it's more uncomfortable to have a break than it is to be doing it, because I was constantly like, I should be doing it. Yeah, so Jennifer said, well, I think this decision is really almost more for me thinking about it than, yeah, like it's having a really important reason. And in the beginning, because no one else is reading, if your reason is because you want to make money or you want to help other people, that's great. But it's going to be hard to pull through those first few months when no one is reading and you're not helping anyone, because there's no one there to help. But if you can see this as a personal development project, as a lesson in managing your mind, I found that really helped me get through those first months, or for me, years. And I'm hoping that by doing this workshop, you are not going to have to spend nearly as much time in your own way as I was. Yeah, it's just so important to start validating yourself, to start making your opinion of yourself more important than other people's opinions. I know this is all easier said than done, and a lot of us know it intellectually. But enjoying the process, to me, what that looks like is not telling myself, life will be better when. Life will be better when I have more subscribers. Life will be better when I'm making more money. All of that stuff, like, in my experience, I always feel about the same. Like, not like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I just think, oh, when I finish uni, then I'll finally be done and I'll feel better. Feel the same as when I was studying. Like, I don't know if that's just the most disheartening thing ever, but you can create the feelings that you want to create now without having to have it attached to something in the future and just be dissatisfied until you get it. Because as you know, most of us, when we get those goals, or even before we achieve a goal, we've already moved the goalpost further out. And a lot of very successful people talk about being constantly dissatisfied. And I think being satisfied is something you have to learn. It doesn't come from having external circumstances change. I'm glad to hear that, Jennifer. That's a huge aha moment right there. That's amazing. Thanks. So that's number 3. And number 4 is trying to please everyone. And it's just like with the niche stuff, I would just really make sure that, like, you only think about pleasing yourself, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't be worried in the beginning about pleasing anyone else. I like to trust that if I'm interested in something, there will be other people interested. Like, I am a unique individual, but there are 7 billion people on the earth. Likely a lot of them have similar interests to me. And so I just always written for myself and about the things that I'm interested in. And the other thing I want to mention, and this is why it's so important to really engage with your audience, even if you have 3 people, engage with them. I used to send out my welcome emails one by one. I get emails from MailChimp saying you have a new subscriber. I copy and paste that into Gmail, and I'd send them a hey, welcome message. And some of you guys who are my original subscribers will have gotten that email from me a few years ago. And I remember when I really started to implement the stuff I'm teaching in this workshop, and I went from getting like 5 subscribers a week to like 50. I was like, oh my goodness, like it was the first time my system of the copy and paste wasn't working. And then now I send out an automated welcome email, though I love saying in mine, I know you know this is automated, because so many automated emails are written as though like they're not automated when clearly everyone knows they are. So I just love to acknowledge that. And a lot of you guys tell me that you love that it actually says that, because we all know they're automated. Anyway, so I did that in the beginning. And now I have a specific person in mind when I'm writing. So I write from I'm the person in my mind. And also Aoife, who's in Ireland, who I know will be watching this, I think maybe the replay of this. And everything I write, I ask myself, would Aoife like this? And Aoife is very similar to me. So it is kind of like asking, would I like this? But it is helpful just to think about it in the context of another person, especially in the beginning. Like, I don't do that as much anymore because I just kind of know it more intuitively because of practice. But in the beginning, if you can engage with your readers, and then if there's one that you think is really your ideal reader, then really like ask them more stuff. Like when I was starting my podcast, I emailed Aoife and a couple of other people and said, like, what are your thoughts on this podcast idea? Like, tell me more about the podcast you listen to, because I assume that everyone is like me that reads, and that is sometimes a mistake because you're not all exactly like me. But it's helpful to actually email you guys and have you there to ask, like, do you actually like long podcasts, or is that just me? Like, and having someone to bounce ideas off and creating that relationship. And it takes time and energy, and it's tempting to think you're like, you know, too busy, too important for that stuff. Don't ever think that. Like, just remember that other people are people. Yeah, it's really important to reply. So trying to please everyone is something that especially perfectionism, which is like wanting to avoid the feeling of shame. And we often shame ourselves when we are rejected or tell ourselves we're being rejected. So often we can try to just speak really broadly and make something appeal to everyone. But you guys wouldn't be here if I wasn't talking specifically to a woman in her 20s who is interested in personal development and is very ambitious but gets in her own way. And I know a lot of you guys aren't in your 20s, like aren't fitting that criteria. But if I was trying to talk to everyone, every age group, then it would be really hard for me to come up with content ideas, because there are a lot of things I write about that if I was trying to make it apply to someone who's 12 and to someone who's 80, I just have to dilute it so much that no one would really resonate with it. Whereas even though I'm writing for a specific person, I get so many people who are like, oh, I'm not really in your demographic. Like, you will find that you'll get people who are not in your demographic. A lot of the people I love following, I'm not in their demographic. But if they were trying to write to please people like me as well, they would dilute what they're saying. So I think in the beginning we can be really scared of getting too specific, but I don't think there's really anything bad that can come from getting too specific. Like, you really getting to, like, it's really hard to get too specific. But just notice yourself if you're trying to please like every single kind of person. then yeah, I think it's really hard. Amber said speak to people where they're at, whatever age or circumstance. Yes, but also have in mind exactly who you're speaking to. So I imagine Aoife, a specific person. I know what she looks like. I know what she's doing for work. I know what she's struggling with. I know like so much about her. So I like picture Aoife, and I also am like picturing my past self. And I write to that so that I can actually say things that are specific. I also find that and I've talked about this before in the first workshop, but make sure you write in first person wherever you can, and avoid the words you should. Because if I know in this it's more instructional, I'm saying you should do this and that, but I try as often as possible to just speak about myself, and it can feel really uncomfortable if you're just new at it. Now it's like super easy for me, and I love doing it. But in the beginning, it feels like no one would care about my personal experience. But if I wasn't sharing with you guys my personal blogging experience, this would be boring AF. But like when I'm talking about, like before Jennifer said that was an aha moment for me, I wasn't giving advice. I was talking about myself. And it's when like I'm talking about myself that you guys are like thinking about yourselves instead of feeling like confronted and that you have to defend your beliefs. You're like thinking about it in a different way. So it's really amazing if you can develop the skill of not saying you should, just saying I think, my experience, all of that kind of thing. And it really helps with perfectionism stuff as well, because it's really challenging if you're giving advice, especially if you don't yet have a specific person in mind, to write that way. Like I find that whenever I end up writing that way, that it's so hard because I'm like, oh, well, this might not apply to everyone, that might not apply to everyone. But if I'm talking about myself, it's so easy. I can just talk about what applies to me, and then naturally, I just think that it's so much more powerful to hear about other people's experiences and stories. And then everyone's just thinking about themselves all the time anyway, so people will just apply it to themselves and reflect on how that applies to their own life. So that is one of the big mistakes. I need to keep moving with this. Oh my goodness, could go for hours. Number 3 is just setting expectations for the next 6 months. So this is the third subtopic that I'm talking about in the workshop. As I was mentioning before, most of us want things super quick, and we're in a rush because we want validation, because we're not giving validation to ourselves. And I think that most people can last 1 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month, without some kind of results, or they get disheartened. It's why so many people give up on exercise, healthy eating. It's all like, well, this effort is for nothing because I'm not getting a result. Even though there's so many benefits of just learning a completely new thing. But I just want to bring it to your attention that if you're not managing your mind, you will likely get to about a month in, no one's reading, no one's commenting. Also, something just on comments, not many people comment anymore. If you've read like old blog posts and people talking about, comments and replying to comments, I personally find that not many people are commenting. People instead might DM me on Instagram or comment on an Instagram like an Instagram post, or send me a message another way. I'm finding that I'm not getting many comments. So don't be concerned about comments, is all I would say. But I would say, and please listen to me, stop what you're doing. Expect for the next 6 months that you'll have no readers, no followers, no likes, no subscribers. Expect it. Expect that no one will read, because what we do is we say, like, we're expecting that, we'll build it and they will come. And then we get very disheartened when the reality isn't matching the expectation. And I'm definitely not one of those people who says like no expectation, no disappointment. I think that's totally not helpful. I think it's very pessimistic. I would say no attachment, no disappointment. I think expectation is very important. But when you have attachment to that expectation, which most people do, that's what leads to disappointment. It's the way that we think that creates a feeling of disappointment. So because a lot of people are very attached to their expectations, if you have not yet learned how to have an expectation without being attached to it, then I recommend having an expectation that you will have no readers. Any readers that come are a bonus, and to focus all of your energy on the effort that you're putting in. And it's just so interesting because a lot of us say to ourselves, whether consciously or not, oh, I'll put in the time once I'm successful. Like once I start getting readers, then it'll be really easy to commit. It'll be really easy to put in the time. And, I'm just going to wait till I'm successful and then I will get really committed and serious. It doesn't happen that way though. It happens the other way around. You have to commit and be serious and put in the time before you become successful. It's like Earl Nightingale, and I've heard a lot of other people say it, like people want, it's like you're saying to a stove, like, give me fire and then I'll put in the wood. Like that's literally how we think about blogging. Give me readers and then I'll put in the effort. It doesn't work that way. You have to shovel in the coal or whatever it is you're doing for the first at least 6 months. As someone mentioned before, I recommend giving yourself 6 months. So we're exactly halfway the year at the moment. So that's at the moment till the end of the year, 6 months. Expect you won't have any readers, and do not judge your success. Do not make any decisions about quitting until that 6 months is over. Because a lot of us are like planting a seed in the ground, covering it with dirt, and then tomorrow, oh, I'll dig it up and see if it's grown. I'll dig it up and see if it's grown. I'll dig it up and see if it's grown. And nothing happens when you do it that way. You have to just put in the effort and have faith. It's why so many blogs get abandoned, because you really have to do the personal development work to persist. Make sure you join in on the Smart 20s Bloggers Facebook group, because that is there to help you. You will have self-doubt. You will have times when it feels way too hard and quitting feels like it'll give you that relief, which, by the way, it won't, because then you'll feel even more self-doubt because now you see yourself as a quitter. But make sure you do get involved in the community as well, because it will really help. But I just want to say that this is a marathon. I know that's not something you want to hear. I know you're probably here to fast track your blog growth. And I have no doubt that if you follow the things that I'm talking about, you will fast track it. That doesn't mean you're going to wake up to hundreds of thousands of subscribers tomorrow. And I think when we want the success really quick, it's because we're believing that we'll feel better when we have it. But because it's such a nebulous, undefined thing, if you're in that mindset, you always just keep it further and further away and make it a reason to be dissatisfied. And I've been doing a lot of work this year on enjoying the day-to-day process, having goals to strive towards, of course, but also making sure that day-to-day, I'm like, I loved the way I spent today. It doesn't mean I don't spend time doing tasks that are annoying or challenging. It just means that I can get satisfaction from the effort rather than a certain number of subscribers or followers or anything like that. And it's a skill, and it's totally fine if you're struggling with that stuff at the moment. This is a marathon. And I've written down, nobody's clapping you on during those first few kilometers, but everyone's clapping you at the finish line, which I feel like is true. If you think of a marathon, when you start, there's no one really there. Not that I've done one. I've seen them on TV. When you start, no one's there. And then at the end of it, everyone's like, yeah, you made it. But you don't get to the end unless you start. You have to be willing to do those first miles alone. And it's the same with blogging. It's so easy to give up. It's logical to give up. But it's not going to help your personal growth. And I think doing the whole, we often think the worst case scenario, and then we think about the worst case being that we waste time. But also, unless you have something very clear that you're going to do with this time instead, I don't think any time spent doing something creative is a waste of time. Regardless of any outcome, I think anything creative is such a good use of time. But I just think that, yeah, it's so easy to quit and it feels good temporarily. But some of you have abandoned blogs and you're coming back because you will have learned that quitting doesn't actually give you the feeling you're hoping it will. And that's because quitting, like, the feelings come from your thoughts and you're still thinking like about your abandoned blog and about you giving up on yourself, and it just will shatter self-confidence. So Jennifer said effort goals over results goals. I'm dying to hear about that because I'm obsessed with results. Yes, I know you are. We all are. I'm going to talk about that in the next section. I just want to quickly mention unfollows, unsubscribes do not mean quit. As I was saying, I get them all the time. They don't mean anything. So don't make it mean anything. Okay, I'm going to, on point 406 and I have 15 minutes, but I'm just going to keep chatting after if it goes over. I know you guys, some of you it's really late at night, some of you have things to do. If you have to leave, you can just come back and watch the replay. But I do want to go through all of this. But yeah, so I knew this was going to happen. It's funny, actually, at different points I've been like, am I going to be able to talk for 2 hours? Yes, very easy. So fear, doubt, and perfectionism. Like, there are so many people that give blogging advice that don't talk about the mindset of it, which I think is partly why there are so many abandoned blogs, because you look at a blog and a blogger and it's like, wow, that looks amazing. They must feel so confident. Look, it looks so easy. And they'll be there telling you like, here's technical setup, 1, 2, 3. And I want to give you guys that stuff, and I do. But I think the mindset side is what stops us. Like, we're all smart here. We can all figure out the technical stuff. There's a bazillion tutorials on how to do WordPress stuff or Squarespace or whatever it is you're using. It's the brain saying, quit, 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 quit. You should stop, you should stop, you should stop. That is the biggest problem. So yeah, I talked about this in the first one, so I won't go into my blogging journey or anything like that. But it was when I started my blog that I realized I was a perfectionist. I mean, I always had the tendencies of people pleasing and procrastinating and withholding effort. But it was only when I started my blog that I was like, holy crap, like, this is really stopping me. So you might find the same thing. It doesn't mean you're not a functional person, and often, like, you can succeed quite well with this mindset. It's just very challenging, and there's a lot of struggle and time spent procrastinating so that when we don't get a desirable result, we at least have this excuse of like, but imagine if I'd tried my best. So the goal here is really to become comfortable with the discomfort that comes with putting in 100% effort. As I was saying, I still struggle with this. I always find myself trying to like wiggle out of putting in effort, but it's so sneaky because I'll be busy. I'm not sitting at home watching Netflix. I'm still busy, but I'll like put my foot on the brake on something and convince myself like, oh no, I need to actually spend time doing this other comfortable task that no one will actually really notice, instead of doing this thing that will move my business forward. And so we're very good at it, especially if you're busy all the time. It can be easy to think that all of that means that you're trying your best, but really have a think about if you're withholding effort and not doing the tasks that you know are important. And a good way to think about this is thinking about the advice you would give to someone else in your position. And if the advice you'd give is not the advice you're taking yourself, it's likely that you're withholding effort because you know you need to do that intellectually, and you're keeping yourself busy with other things. So I wouldn't have a look at how much time you're spending, because though sometimes we do just procrastinate with Netflix and Pinterest, especially Pinterest because it feels so productive. But yeah, it's important to really become self-aware. And now I am going to talk about creating goals that are effort-based. Dora said, here it is 1 a.m. soon. Yes, I get you, girl. You can come back and watch the rest of this. It'll all be available at this link. So just come back when you're ready. So create goals that are effort-based. I need some water. So as I was saying, it's very important to have goals that are effort-based rather than results-based. But of course, you don't want to just be flailing around doing whatever. So what I like to do is when I have goals, say if your goal is 100 email subscribers. What you would do is you would take that and then you would write down all of the action that would make that goal inevitable. So for example, and you might not know exactly what that would be because you haven't done it before, but you would write down maybe like post consistently, create things that people can download, all of that stuff that will lead to that. And then you like have faith that that's going to happen, and you put your focus instead on posting consistently, the effort of doing that, the effort of creating things for people to download, the effort of setting up the technical side. And then if you are focused on that and rewarding yourself for putting in the effort, then that result happens. But what happens when we're focused just on the result? We can very easily get disheartened and we're like, oh, we haven't done it yet. Or we're constantly like, I only have 1 subscriber, I only have 1 subscriber, I only have 1 subscriber. Instead of just thinking, and then if you're in the perfectionist mindset, you'll like withhold effort because it does feel very vulnerable to give it 100% effort and it not be good enough, whatever that means, like to not get the result. So what we try to do is we just put our foot on the brake. So maybe it doesn't look like you're going to hit your goal. Then we're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to change my blog theme every week. Not consciously often, but subconsciously we'll just like start to keep ourselves busy with other things. And we can say to ourselves, oh, but I wasn't still working towards that goal, so I didn't fail at it. And if you create an effort-based goal, so say your goal is 100 email subscribers and the effort is creating one thing for people to download per month and posting 4 times per week and talking about it on Instagram or whatever it is, then you focus your energy on that. Did I show up for myself? Did I show up for myself? Did I show up for myself? And following through with the plan is what creates self-confidence. It's not the people liking it that creates self-confidence. It's following through on your own plans, having your own back. And it's a skill to be developed like anything, which means it will probably be a struggle in the beginning. But if you write at the top the result, then the actions you would need to take to get that result, and then you just focus on the action. So I've spoken about this at different times, but I did this with the gym. And when I was really focused on my appearance, it was so hard to be consistent because I was constantly like, I'm not getting the results, I'm not getting the results. Then I'd withhold effort, so I had an excuse for not getting the results. But then when I said, okay, my goal isn't like, that could be a byproduct, my appearance, but I changed my goal to physical strength. And it's just interesting that some areas of your life you might have a fix and some area of your life you might have a growth mindset. For me, with physical, like weight training, I have a growth mindset because I'm like, well, you have to lift weights to get stronger. Whereas for other things, even though it makes no sense, I'm like, no, you should just be naturally like that or you're not. So it helped that I did have a growth mindset, meaning that I knew that I was going to have to put in the effort to get those results. And instead of looking a certain way, my goal became, I'm going to go to the gym 6 times per week. And that's all I focused on. And I didn't judge my progress. Instead, I just said, did I go to the gym today or didn't I go to the gym? And I also find it helpful not to judge if you have a good workout or a bad workout. my only criteria was, did I go to the gym? Knowing that some would be good, some would be bad. In the end, I feel like even though some workouts don't feel great, it's still better than nothing. And doing the bad workouts helps you keep momentum. So doing all of that, it was so much easier to stay consistent. And then I got the physical result as well because I put in the effort. But when I was so focused on that end result, I just kept getting so disheartened, and my all or nothing would kick in, and I'd want an excuse for not getting the result. Like this happened with doing Kayla Itzimas's bikini body guide. I would do week 1 to 4. I think this is like such a good analogy for blogging and stuff too. I do week 1 to 4, and I didn't have an expectation that I would have any kind of big result in those first 4 weeks. So it was easy to persist because I was telling myself, oh, once I'm past this 4 weeks, then, I'll start seeing change. I didn't start seeing change. And I kept quitting in week 5 because I'd get there and be like I'd seen on Instagram all of these people with before and afters, and they were getting results. They were like week 1 to week 4. And I was like, I don't look like that. So I'd quit so that I could say to myself, you would look like that if you were still doing it. Like imagine if you tried your best, you'd get that too. Instead of dealing with the discomfort of doing something without anything to show for it. And yeah, that's been my experience with effort-based goals. Let me know if you have any questions, but it has been one of the most powerful things to get me out of the fixed mindset and into a growth mindset. If you need any help with turning a result into an effort-based goal, make sure you go to the Smart 20s Bloggers Facebook group. I will be in there. I'm always in there to answer your questions, and I'm sure other people will have advice to help you as well. Caitlin said, I have 18 followers on Instagram and I've already had plenty of people unfollow. It makes me laugh. Yeah, I would like unfollows don't matter. And the other thing, and with Instagram, a lot of people will follow you because they want you to follow them. And if you don't already know about all this stuff, there are programs that people buy that will go and follow all of the people that post under a certain hashtag and will unfollow them 24 hours later. So half the time they're not even real people that are unfollowing. A lot of the time people are doing that strategy, and I do not recommend this strategy whatsoever. Following people so that they'll follow you in return. It just doesn't create an engaged audience when everyone's following you just because you followed them. It's like if you're at a party and everyone's just there because you invite everyone just because they invited you to their party, and you're all like, do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't support that method, and I'll be talking about what I do in the Promote Your Blog workshop. But if you have been following and unfollowing people, know that that's what people are doing to you as well, regardless of whether you're following and unfollowing people. Know that people have bots. When you post something and you will get comments on it being like a smiley face or a thumbs up or a random emoji, often in the first few minutes of posting, that don't seem to fit, or maybe they do. They might say, nice photo, or love your account, or something like that. They're usually bots. They're not usually normal, real people. So it's really important, especially with Instagram, not to get disheartened with unfollows, because half the time it's just people who are following mass amounts of people that don't even know you. They're just following all the accounts that post under a certain hashtag and then unfollowing everyone 24 hours later, regardless of whether they follow them or not. And you can also look on accounts and see whether they've grown their account using that method, because people just aren't engaged whatsoever. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about that in the Promote Your Blog workshop, but it's very important that you do not get disheartened by unfollows and unsubscribes. And if you are feeling disheartened, please post in the Smart 20s Bloggers Facebook group. it's not just a place to share wins, it's also a place to share stuff you're struggling with. And if you're struggling with it, you can guarantee there are other people that will be struggling with it as well. The other thing I wanted to say is that fear and self-doubt are completely normal. I think that the media and advertising have convinced us that any kind of negative feeling is wrong, and should be escaped immediately through shopping, through food, through Netflix. Like, if you feel bad, here are things you can do to make yourself feel better. You guys know that I love following Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School podcast, and from her, I have truly learned that life is going to be, whether or not it's true, I think it is a helpful belief. Life is going to be 50% negative emotion. And a lot of the time, like, that sounds horrible, doesn't it? Like 50% negative. But a lot of the time we have this really like, if you want your life to be, say, like 20%, like 80% positive and 20% negative, a lot of that's because you're using false pleasure like food and shopping and that, like the things that give you like a dopamine hit to try and feel pleasure, and that you're not actually creating a true sense of well-being. Or you might be experiencing even more than 50% of negative emotion, because you might feel bad about something and then you feel bad about feeling bad. Like, a lot of the time we will like shame ourselves about a negative emotion, or we'll like just add one on top of the other and make it even worse. But if you have this belief that life is 50% negative emotion, then when it happens, you can deal with it without trying to escape it. And without telling yourself a story that it means something's wrong or it's a sign from the universe or anything like that. So yeah, it's just like there are so many fears that might come up: the fear of being boring, fear of being rejected, the fear of other people's opinions, fear of wasting time, wasting effort. And if you haven't experienced it yet, you will likely experience a big wave of self-doubt. Like, mine lasted, when I first started my blog and bought my domain, it was 3 months. And I stopped listening to podcasts. I had to like completely remove myself, because whenever I listened to podcasts, I just felt so guilty about like all the things that I wasn't doing that I should be. So I just stopped everything. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then eventually I could write it out, but I didn't really have anyone then. I mean, I definitely did have people, but I just had so many negative judgments about myself that I projected it onto other people. So I didn't talk to anyone about it, and I was just kind of struggling with it by myself, which is why I've created the Facebook group, because I think that if I had a place to get support from people who are struggling with the same thing, then it would have been not as long as 3 months. And I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened. I just want you to know that it will happen. And when it happens, you can be like, oh yeah, this is the self-doubt Sam was talking about. I'm going to keep going anyway. So just remind yourself, if you're experiencing that, that's what growth feels like. As I was saying before, if something feels natural, it only feels natural because you've already been doing it. Anything new isn't going to feel natural because your brain's like, what, like, we need to learn a whole new thing here, and that's going to feel uncomfortable. And our brains are designed to be efficient, so they will deter us from anything that's going to expend extra energy, which is whenever we do something new. So don't tell yourself that it should feel natural, or that writing should feel like, a lot of people have this belief around writing that it should be natural, that you're a natural writer. I enjoy writing. I struggle with it a lot. Like, it's hard to get words out. It's hard to start things. It's hard to end things. Like, I think especially writing, it's something that, you know, you just imagine like someone writing a book or a blog post and they just sit down, perfect post comes out, when really, when you listen to especially some of the most famous writers in the world, they don't talk about it. Like, they talk about it being such a struggle. So if you do have this belief that writing should feel natural, and because it doesn't, then you're not good at writing. Yeah, I don't know. For me, at least, it doesn't feel natural. But I do get satisfaction out of playing around with words. And I also want to mention, because a lot of you guys don't have English as your native language, that I get so many emails from people apologizing for near perfect English. I don't know if it was Doris or someone else was commenting in the Facebook group saying like, I'm just scared to write in English because I'm worried about making mistakes. And yet the post was like basically perfect English. And I know a lot of people where it's not your native language get worried about it, but I don't write grammatically correct English on my blog posts. I write in a very different style than I do for any kind of formal writing. I start sentences with and, which is definitely not right, but I like doing it. And so I do it, and I have a thing where I just put the wrong endings on words, and I often don't pick it up, and spell check doesn't pick it up because they're real words. They're just slightly wrong. So, yeah, like I make mistakes. That's my native language. So for those of you guys who have been worried about writing in English when it's not your native language, don't be like, language is a skill and the way to develop it is to practice it. But most of you guys who apologize have like you look like native speakers to me. So I just want to say that. I also want to talk about how to balance blogging with your full-time job. I know now we are quite a bit over the 2-hour mark. Oh, yes, it was you, Doris. But I do want to keep going because I think this will be really helpful. So if you do have to leave, no problem at all. This will all be here for you when you are ready to come back. So to balance blogging with your full-time job or full-time studies, have a think about the time of day that you work best. So for me, I was just always way too exhausted to blog at night. Like I always had this idea that like I'll come home from my job and then I'll just do a couple of hours of blogging, then I'll hang out with Steve. Reality was it was just so hard to do anything creative, and I was finding that if I did manage to get myself to sit down, it would take me so long to do things. And when I got serious about blogging, I made the decision to actually prioritize it. I am a believer in doing something for yourself before you do something for your boss. Whether or not that is working on your blog is up to you, but I think it really sets a tone and is a reminder to yourself that you are your top priority, not your boss. And this is the same if you're your own boss. I do stuff for me as a person each morning before I do stuff for me as my boss. So, oh, thanks. I'm so glad your morning tips have helped me so much. That makes me so happy. So if you are, have you been trying to do it at night and you're struggling, try doing it in the morning. If you've been trying to do it in the morning and you're struggling, try and do it at night. Really pay attention to what time of day you work best, and you might need to create new habits to support it. But I can tell you for sure that if I hadn't have changed from trying to blog after work to doing it before, I would not be where I am today. I probably would still be at my full-time job struggling away because I just didn't have the energy. I wasn't excited, and I also was much more prone to procrastination because when I woke up early, I was like, I am not waking up early to sit on Facebook or Instagram. I am getting my stuff done. I only had 2 hours in the morning, though. It's really important that you don't discount like any time you have just because it's not enough. Like we can get into this thinking of needing like a 6 hour block of time, or we're not going to get anything done. If you're focused, you can get so much done in 2 hours. You can get so much done in 1 hour. You can get so much done in 30 minutes, 15 minutes. So it's really important to just think about what time of day do I work best, and then adjusting your life and looking at your priorities. If it is really important, and this is just generally something that's really great to do with life stuff, to think about your priorities, write them down. Like you might have family in your mind as a value is your top priority. Then look at your time. Maybe you don't spend any time with your family because you're so busy working and doing everything else. Like it's a really great exercise to look at what are my priorities intellectually, And if someone looked at my life, what would they say my priorities are? Would they say it's work? Would they say my priority is Netflix? What would they say my priority is? And if you want blogging to be something that you're doing successfully, it needs to be at least a priority in your life. And that means making time instead of hoping that you will find the time. Next thing I want to say, and I've written down, what are the tasks that you love to procrastinate with? So often the reason the first few months are especially hard is because we're so in our own way that we just spend those first few months procrastinating, but being productive while procrastinating. So we are, as I was saying before, formatting, over editing, changing the theme, we're fiddling with graphics, we're fixing inconsequential tech issues. All of that is stuff that feels productive. And if you don't have a clear goal, you might end up doing that stuff because you're like, I need to do something, but I don't know what to do. So I would just have a think and just pay attention to yourself. What are the tasks that you love to procrastinate with? And you'll notice as well that these tasks will be very justified. You will definitely be able to find a lot of reasons why those tasks are important. But know that the most important things are posting blog posts and engaging with your audience and giving people things to get on your email list and engaging with your email list. If it's not one of those three things, you need to focus first on those things, and then in your spare time, if you have any, to do those other things that you love procrastinating with. Because, as I was saying before, we fill our time with unimportant things so that we don't have time to do the scary stuff. And I know a lot of you guys are in a similar mindset to me, and you will probably have that tendency as well. Yes, I've spent years trying to work out in the evening because I always thought I was a night person. It wasn't until I tried doing it in the morning until I've been doing it every day. I'm so glad to hear that, Hannah. And I think a lot of people might be the same, that we have this idea of whether we're a night person or a morning person, especially because we have this idea about what a morning person is, and then a morning person feels wide awake and energized and loves getting out of bed. I would call myself a morning person. Every morning I struggle to get out of bed, but you can develop the skills to do it. But I don't jump out of bed. I'm like, ugh, I want to sleep. So yeah, I think if you think you are a night person, but you've been struggling to do blogging at night, maybe just reconsider. Or maybe it's not blogging, maybe it's exercise, but that's important too. I do a couple of hours in the morning before my daughter wakes up, and then work on a little more during her naps. Yeah, and that's so good. So have a think about the tasks that are your favorite ones to procrastinate with, and just write them down so that they're there in your mind as like when you're doing them, you're like, wait a second, am I just trying to avoid something? A great question to ask yourself is, if I wasn't doing this, what would I have time to do? And often that's what you're trying to avoid. So like, if I wasn't busy with changing my theme, I'd have enough time to post blog posts. Well, you're probably changing your theme so that you don't have enough time to post blog posts. Yeah, so I'm going to keep moving. The next thing is to create deadlines. So we've talked about this, but it's really important skill to learn if you want to be your own boss and if you want to be successful. The reason it's challenging is because there's no one telling you you need to post today. Like, it's so challenging because no one will notice if you don't post, but you will notice, and that will make all the difference. And I find it really important to think about this as a skill, not, oh, I'm good at sticking to deadlines. I'm not good at sticking to deadlines. Sticking to deadlines is a skill, and it's one that you develop. And thinking about it that way keeps you in the growth mindset rather than in the fixed mindset. And if you're in the fixed mindset with creating deadlines, you would probably set a deadline, you wouldn't stick to it, and then you'd create this belief that you're just not good at sticking to deadlines, so you'd stop creating the deadline so that you can't be failing at it. So I just want to mention as well, more time won't solve your problems. So when I was working full-time, And when I was studying full time as well, I used to be so jealous of all these people that had time to spend on their blogs. And I was like, if I just had more time, I would be more successful. Then I quit my full time job. I had more time. I procrastinated a fuckload because the thing was that more time, if you aren't managing your mind, more time doesn't fix the problem. And if you have been procrastinating with the little time you have, you will procrastinate with the big amounts of time that you have. And so I just wanted to mention that because I know a lot of you guys might look at people with more time, be like, oh, if I didn't have kids or if I just wasn't working full time, it's really easy to use that as an excuse. But the reality is that often more time doesn't solve the problem. And that was hard for me to learn, really hard. But when I got more time, I just procrastinated more and really learned the importance of self-discipline, of deadlines, of goals, of learning how to manage my mind, and of really seeing the patterns I had with doing unimportant tasks so that I could avoid the stuff that scared me. Like when I quit my full-time job, which I had been like dreaming of doing, I did it. And then suddenly I'd like put all this pressure on myself, like, well, now I have no excuse not to be successful. And I feel like in the first few years, I'd really hidden behind those excuses and convinced myself if I was just full time at this, I'd be successful. Then I was full time, I was like, oh crap, now I have no excuse. And that was so uncomfortable that I just procrastinated so I could still say to myself, well, I would be more successful if I was spending more time writing posts or whatever it is. And like, I didn't post for like at least 6 weeks, I'm pretty sure, after I quit my job. Like, I just was like, oh, like, I just felt so vulnerable that like now I had the chance to try my hardest, which is what I've been wanting. But I was like, oh my God, what if it doesn't work? So I like started procrastinating. So I had an excuse if I did fail. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I also know that a lot of you guys will be able to relate to that. So I just wanted to mention that if you're like glamorizing the idea of more time, it won't matter unless you've mastered your mindset, and you can do that with a little bit of time. It doesn't take that much time if you can be disciplined and you're focusing on the right things, which is the stuff I'm going to be sharing. And I'm going to be creating an outline in the course as well about the things to focus on, which is particularly posting, as I said, growing your email list, which is offering people things to download and then engaging with that email list. They're the most important things to be doing. Jennifer said, how do you balance this with the necessary free time you need to recharge? Well, I sucked at that, really. And I am still learning this. So I have just reinforced having 1 day off per week, which, as I just said, I suck at this because today is my day off. Steve was like, it's not a day off if you're doing a 2-hour workshop. I was like, but I need to do stuff on Saturday. And yeah, so I am having the day off after this. And yeah, I still struggle with it. But the reason I have given myself a clear amount of time off is because when I don't have that, and this is the issue when you get more time, the task, I can't remember I want to say it's called Parkinson's law. The tasks you have will expand to the time you have allotted. So it's like if you have 4 weeks to write an essay, it'll take you 4 weeks. If you have 1 day left to write an essay, it will take you 1 day. Like it takes however long you have. So by reducing the amount of time I have, I am forcing myself to be more effective, not just more productive, because some of the things I have been producing in the past actually aren't really adding up to anything. So I'm focusing on being effective, meaning that the things I'm doing are getting me results. And I know I was just talking about efforts versus results, but it is really important to make sure that all the effort you're putting in does eventually attach to some result. Like, for example, if you just did an effort-based goal and your effort-based goal was vague, to spend 2 hours blogging a day, then you might spend 2 hours fiddling with your theme and you're never going to get anywhere. But if your goal is, as I was saying, 100 email subscribers, then you can say, okay, these are the actions I would take, or this is my hypothesis that is going to take these actions, and I'm going to test that, because there will be things, it's the first time you'll be doing them, that you won't actually know the action you need to take. So you're saying, like a scientist, this is an experiment. I think it's going to take these steps. I'm going to try it and see what happens. And then you say, okay, well, you know, today I'm going to write the blog post and publish it. The next day I'm going to do this. The next day I'm going to do that. Instead of having it be vague, like 2 hours, I'm going to just blog, which is what I used to do. And then I just procrastinate the whole time. So yeah, more time won't solve your problems. And balancing this with the time you need to recharge, as I said, still learning, but I would definitely like give yourself an allotted amount of time per week, even if it's half an hour. I think half an hour of pure disconnection from things can be really recharging. It doesn't need to be a full day, but having that time of like, I'm definitely not going to be blogging in this time, and also really thinking about, this is something I've struggled with, what am I going to do with that free time? Because when I hadn't been really conscious about it, that's how I slipped back into working in that time, because I hadn't thought about, okay, what I want my life to look like outside of my business. Then I'd have free time and be like, oh, I'm just wasting time, because I was just really aimless. And if you're a similar personality type, then you might like to have other projects and things that you're working on. At the moment, I am making over my wardrobe using the Curated Closet by Anushka Rees, and I'm doing different things around the house. And so I actually have things to be working on. So when I have downtime and I'm doing a lot of reading, I have clear things to go to, instead of like, oh, I don't know what to do with my free time. I may as well just work. Rose said, this is so true. It makes me think of a saying my dad used to say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I've learned that too much free time can hurt more than it can help. Yes, definitely. So yeah, I know it's really tempting to glamorize the idea of having more time, but unless you have really worked on your mindset, you're probably just procrastinating that time. So just, if you find yourself thinking like, oh, I would be successful if I had more time, just stop yourself, remember this conversation, and then focus on your mindset. So I'm on to my 6th and final point for the workshop, 2.5 hours in. So these are blogging habits to develop. The first one is to set aside time on a regular basis, even if it's a small amount of time. As I was saying, 15 minutes a day is enough. And even just, 15, 30 minutes, it'll also help you, as we've been talking about, with not procrastinating. But I like when you have a goal, especially in the beginning, to touch it every day, like to do something towards it. And I had that with my blog in the beginning. When I got serious, so a few years later, I was like, I just need to touch it every day. I just need to do something towards it every day. And that really helps with creating momentum, and also with your self-image, is seeing yourself as someone who is blogging, rather than if you only do it once a month, it's much harder to maintain that self-image, and therefore you don't act in accordance with being a blogger. The next thing is to create goals. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on this. I know quite a few of you have left now, but those of you who are here, I was thinking of, in the Smart 20s bloggers Facebook group, doing like a goal set together, and a goal check-in. I might like do a Facebook Live or something. Let me know your thoughts if you'd like to do that. They would be effort-based goals. So like, the goal wouldn't be like 100 subscribers. It would be the effort that will get you there. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in doing that. I think it would be helpful, and also just good to keep everyone on track. So that's something that's really important, and to just make sure you do have something that you're working towards, and make sure you share your goals as well in the Facebook group. The next thing is to make blogging friends, and getting in the habit of making blogging friends. Like, I know it can be hard to make friends when you're an adult. I'm glad you guys like that idea. So it's making friends can be hard, and everyone's like, oh no, I want to be friends with me. But it can be very isolating when you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off. I find that even now, like I have so many supportive friends, but the ones who don't have blogs, I love them so much. But whenever I'm talking about blogging stuff, they're just so encouraging. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, oh, wait, have you thought of this? Like, it's just so helpful to have someone who's going through the same thing. Or like if I might be telling them like, yeah, I've been doubting myself, and they'll be like, oh, you don't need to doubt yourself. Whereas if it's a blogging friend, they're like, yeah, I'm in that at the moment too. And even though it's nice to get encouragement, and I think it is important, it is so nice to just have those people that are relatable, and also so important to have people that make your goals feel normal. When I was first starting blogging, I didn't feel like blogging was a normal thing to do. At least I had the podcast I listened to that I felt like, okay, this is kind of like there are people doing this. But because in my day-to-day life no one else was, I just felt like that habit I had of shaming myself like also applied to that, because I was like, why do I want this and no one else wants it and I'm weird for doing this? So if you can have a group of people around you, even if it's virtually, though I've seen some of you in the Facebook group potentially meeting up, which is awesome. And it's so different having people in person. If you can find someone in person, like just to have someone physically there, it's so good. But yeah, getting blogging friends, you can create a goal around it. Might sound a bit weird, but you can have goals about like, I'm going to comment on this number of blogs per week. Like definitely use the Facebook group and make sure that like there are so many of you at a similar point, and it's such a good to have friendships when you're at a similar point, because you'll be dealing with a lot of the same things. Like I can give you guys my advice on certain things, but for some things it's actually more helpful to get advice from someone who's just going through it at the moment than me, who went through it a few years ago. So don't underestimate the power of friendships, and remember as well that even though you probably think like they're too busy or whatever, they're likely the only one in their social group that has a blog and they want to meet you. So make sure you become active in the Facebook group and comment. I know a lot of you guys are lurkers probably, because that's what I like doing in Facebook groups. I just like lurk and read everything. So if you have been lurking, please say hello. It's so lovely to see you guys supporting each other and reading your blogs and following each other's Instagram accounts and everything like that. And it makes all the difference. And you grow with your blogging friends as well. Like a lot of my ones have continued to blog, and of course some don't, but a lot of them have, and we've like grown through things together. So it's really powerful. So that is a really important habit to have. Engage and reply. So as I mentioned before, it's so important not to take a single subscriber for granted, to imagine that those subscribers, even if it's 3 people, like that's 3 people, not just the number 3. And the way that a lot of blogging and social media is promoted is around 6 figures and millions of followers and like all of this. And they're not followers, they're people. They're not subscribers, they're people. And I would really dedicate time. If someone emails you, if someone comments, always reply. I just think it really creates such a good, like, as I was saying, if you're not grateful for what you have, you won't be grateful for what you get. And if you can't be grateful for 5 subscribers, I can assure you, you won't be grateful for 5 million. Even though you might be like, yeah, I would. No, you have to learn how to be grateful for 5 before you can be grateful for 5 million. And it all just is practice and the habit of replying to emails. So set aside time to reply to emails. And I assure you, if you care for your subscribers like they are your friends, you will get more people. It's also a really important habit to take action quickly. And this is actually my final point for the workshop, which is probably good because I can feel my throat is kind of like going to give out on me soon. If you have an idea, flesh it out by taking action rather than by planning. So initially, whenever I had an idea, I would plan, research. And as you might know, when you have an idea, the first day you think you're a genius, the second day you think you're an idiot. Like so many things. I have an idea, I'm like, oh, that's going to be the best, especially it happened with these blogging workshops. I had the idea, I was like, oh, so many people are being asking for this advice, and I could just like sit down and do a chatty workshop. I was like, this is going to be the best thing. I was telling Steve, I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm going to be offering this. So good. And then the next day I was like, no one's going to show up. Why would anyone come to this? This is a dumb idea. No, you shouldn't do that. That's going to, like clockwork, I get that if I then the stronger I feel about my idea, the more self-doubt I have. And so I think it's just always important to remember that. But when you have momentum, and Tony Robbins said this, to not leave the sight of setting a goal without taking the first bit of action. And there are a lot of things that I've taken action on quickly that I've decided not to continue doing. But it's all part of it. And there are a lot of things that I've taken action on quickly, like writing my own Instagram quotes, which are now a very fundamental part of my business. And if I had overthought that, I would have psyched myself out for sure. So if you're having an idea, I might try this series, I might try this new way of getting subscribers, literally put it together, the minimum viable product, as quickly as you can and get it out there. I thought about creating a healthy mind guide, which would be like a 12-week fitness plan, but for your mind. And I was really excited about the idea. And I was like, I'm just going to create a page and email you guys and just put it out there and at least start taking that initial bit of action towards it. It's such an important skill. It's totally okay if you don't follow through with everything. I think that's part of blogging, to know that a lot of the things that you try won't work out, but in trying them, you will figure out what does work out. Like, I think a lot of us just want to sit in our rooms like zen and be like, this brilliant idea, and then it works out successfully, and this brilliant idea. And the reason we want that is because of what we make it mean when we fail. We don't want to feel that feeling. But all of my best ideas have come from like all of these awkward ideas before, and then I've been like, oh wait, actually I could do that. And I couldn't get to the end bit that worked without first trying those other few things. As I was saying, I believe that nothing creative is ever a waste of time. And all the time you're building skills, all the time you're finding your voice, all the time you're accumulating readers, even though it might not feel like it in the beginning. So yeah, I think acting quickly, like you don't need to plan for very long, and you might have an idea and you're like, I'll go on Pinterest and see how other people have executed this. Do that if you do it. Set a time limit, 1 hour. I assure you in 1 hour you can get all the information you need to start acting. So if you're ever falling into that type of planning and needing it to be perfect, go and comment or post in the Facebook group, because we will help you get into action. But taking action quickly is a great skill. And in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill was saying that too many people make decisions slowly and then change them quickly and often. And the people who are successful make decisions quickly and change them, like don't change their mind. I do think it is okay to not continue with things that are no longer working, or to evolve your ideas is how I like to think about it more. But just do your best to take action quickly. If you have an idea, comment in the Facebook group and then say, this is the first bit of action I'm taking towards it. because that self-doubt comes in like clockwork. And if you haven't started taking action, you will for sure psych yourself out. So that is the Grow Your Blog workshop. We have made it through to the end. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Rachel said, would love collective goal creation and check-in so everyone can stay accountable and keep up the momentum. And Caitlin said yes. Rose said I really like that idea. Jennifer said it would be a great way to start. So I might do a post today then, immediately after this, since it is the 1st of July, at least here in Australia, it's the 1st of July, to set some goals for July and to get things going. Jennifer, yay, thank you so much for this. My pleasure. Like, I hope you guys can tell that I quite enjoy sitting here and chatting because I have gone 40 minutes over time. But I hope you found this really helpful. So I've already uploaded a few tutorials to the course, to where you log in. And I will be uploading more things in the coming week. If there's anything you'd like to see from me, make sure you let me know and I'll be happy to create it. And there will be the Promote Your Blog workshop, which I hope you guys will be in as well. So in that workshop, I'll be talking about Pinterest. I'll be talking about Instagram, Facebook, all of that, like the strategies that I've used to get people to my blog. So the first one was about starting your blog, which hopefully you guys have. If you haven't, not too late, get started now. Then there's a Grow Your Blog workshop, which is this one, which is about really getting going and creating a base. And then the next one is going to be about how to get the people there. Yeah, so I'm just so grateful for you guys, and it really makes my day when I hear from you and when you show me your blogs and all of that kind of thing. So don't ever think that I'm too busy and that I don't care. I definitely do. So if you haven't posted yet in the Facebook group, go on and post, please, because we would all love to hear from you. And as I was saying, creating blogging friends is such an important habit. So go and do that. And if you guys don't have any questions, I am going to sign off. Yeah, I've loved doing this, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.